It was supposed to be just another quiet weekend away. My family and I had driven up to our cabin, our peaceful little getaway spot, tucked deep in the woods, just to unplug and spend some quality time together. We were grilling burgers, tossing a football, laughing with the kids, and honestly, just enjoying a rare moment of calm. But right as the sun started to dip behind the trees, something strange happened that flipped the whole mood upside down. Out of nowhere, we noticed someone pacing near the edge of our property, staring at us like we didn't belong there. She had a phone in one hand and a scowl that could cut glass. This woman, someone we'd later find out, was a member of the local HOA. Though we were outside of any actual HOA jurisdiction, stormed over and demanded to know what we were doing on her land. Mind you, this was our private cabin, fully paid for and clearly marked. But she wasn't having it. Within minutes, she was calling 911, rambling something about suspicious activity and unfamiliar people trespassing. My wife tried calmly explaining we were the owners, even offered to show ID and property documents, but the woman wasn't interested. In fact, she wanted control. We figured the local sheriff might show up, maybe ask a few questions, and leave. But what happened next, we never could have imagined. Not long after she made that call, black SUVs rolled up the gravel road. Men in suits stepped out, and their jackets had 3 big yellow letters on them: PHBI. My heart dropped. Why was the Federal Bureau of Investigation at our cabin in the middle of nowhere? Were we in danger? Was this woman connected to something? More. I wish I could say it ended quickly, but that was just the beginning. What the agent said next left all of us frozen, and it had absolutely nothing to do with a noise complaint or property lines. The agents didn't look angry or aggressive, but their presence was intense. They moved with purpose, scanning the area like they already knew what they were looking for. One of them came right up to me and asked if I was the property owner. I nodded, still confused and trying to stay calm, and told him yes, this was our cabin and we were just here for the weekend. My kids had gone quiet, huddled close to my wife, and even the dog picked up on the tension. Then the agent asked something that caught me completely off guard. I'd noticed any unusual activity in the area lately. He wasn't talking about loud music or too many cars parked out front. He meant drones, strange visitors, things out of place in the woods. I looked at him and said, no, nothing like that. It's just birds, squirrels, and the occasional deer. But now I was starting to wonder, had something happened out here recently that we didn't know about? The woman, let's call her Karen, since she never gave us her real name, was standing off to the side with her arms crossed, looking half proud and half nervous. She kept trying to interrupt, saying things like, I told you they were suspicious. And they've been out here all day doing God knows what. One of the agents calmly asked her to step aside while they spoke with us directly. That's when it really started to feel serious. I asked him straight up why the FBI was involved in what seemed like a petty neighborhood dispute. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he radioed something into his shoulder mic, and a few seconds later, more agents started walking around the back of our cabin. They were scanning the ground, looking behind trees, even checking under our deck. It was surreal at that point. I couldn't help but think, what did they know that we didn't? Was there something hidden on our property? Or had someone been watching us without us even realizing it? One thing was clear. This wasn't just about a phone call anymore. Something way bigger was going on. As more agents moved around the cabin, I started questioning everything. Was this really about us? Or had we just stumbled into something we weren't supposed to see? My wife whispered that maybe there was some kind of investigation happening in the area, and we just got caught in the middle. But if that was the case, why did they seem so focused on our property? Karen, meanwhile, wasn't backing down. Kept shouting things like, I saw them digging earlier, and they don't belong here, which wasn't true. We'd been clearing out a few old logs from the yard, Sure, but there was no digging going on. I started to wonder if she had been watching us for longer than we realized, maybe even the day before. The way she acted, it felt personal, like she had some kind of grudge or maybe even a plan. The whole vibe was off. One of the agents, eventually, pulled me aside and said they had reason to believe this area was connected to an ongoing federal case. He wouldn't say much else but mentioned they had picked up some kind of signal nearby. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but I told him we had no tech equipment other than a Wi-Fi router and a couple of phones. That's when he looked me dead in the eye and asked if we'd seen a black duffel bag or any strange electronics left behind near the cabin. My stomach turned. We hadn't seen anything like that. At least, not that I noticed. But what if someone had stashed something out here without us knowing? Could the cabin have been used by someone else when we weren't around? It wasn't impossible this place had sat empty for a couple of months before our visit. Just then, one of the agents called out from behind the shed. Everyone turned. Even Karen went quiet for the first time. The agent held something up in his hand, and whatever it was, it made the others move in fast. I didn't know what he found, but the way they reacted, it wasn't good. The moment the agent raised his hand, holding what looked like a small, black device, everything seemed to slow down. It wasn't a phone or anything I'd recognize right away, but from the way the other agents reacted, it clearly wasn't something harmless. One of them quickly radioed in something I couldn't make out, and within minutes, 2 more unmarked vehicles pulled up, kicking up a cloud of dust as they rolled to a stop. My kids were inside the cabin now, peeking through the windows, their faces pale. My wife stood next to me, holding onto my arm. Both of us locked in that helpless state where you don't know if you're in trouble or just stuck in someone else's mess. I tried to ask the lead agent again what was going on, but he just shook his head slightly, like he wasn't allowed to say more. All he said was, "We're securing the area. Stay inside and don't touch anything." Karen, of course, was still nearby, watching the whole thing with a strange mix of triumph and confusion. I couldn't tell if she was pleased with herself or starting to realize things had spiraled way out of her control. I heard her mention something about finally exposing them, but the agents weren't paying her any attention anymore. She wasn't the center of the show anymore, whatever they had found was. I overheard a snippet of conversation between 2 agents near the shed. One of them said, "If this is real, we've got a serious breach," and the other nodded, glancing over his shoulder like someone might be listening. That's when I started to worry this wasn't just about our cabin. It could be about the whole area. Maybe even something federal or international. The words breach, device, and signal kept coming up, and all I could think about was whether we'd been used somehow, like unknowing pawns in something way over our heads. The agents started roping off part of the yard with yellow tape. One of them looked up toward the cabin window, saw my kids, and calmly gestured for us to stay put. I had 1,000 questions. But then another SUV pulled in. This time, it wasn't the FBI. The new SUV that pulled in wasn't marked, but it didn't look like one of the FBI's either. Sleek, tinted windows, totally silent. 2 men stepped out, wearing suits that didn't match the others, more polished, less tactical. And they didn't carry visible weapons, but you could feel their authority by the way everyone else suddenly shifted when they arrived. Even the lead FBI agent straightened up and walked over to greet them quietly, like he was reporting to someone higher up. That's when things got even stranger. One of the new guys glanced over at me and my wife, then whispered something to the agent, who nodded and waved us over. My heart was pounding. I didn't want to leave my kids inside alone, but the agent assured us they'd be watched, and that this wouldn't take long. Against every instinct, we followed them down the gravel path toward the shed where they had set up a small folding table and placed that strange black device on top. One of the men asked me, calmly but seriously, if anyone else had access to the property. I said no. We don't rent it out. We don't loan it out. It's been in the family for years. Then he asked if I'd been up recently, specifically about 2 months ago. I told him no, and that's when he gave me a look I'll never forget. A mix of surprise and concern. Like I'd just confirmed something important without realizing it. They showed me a photo on a tablet, grainy, but clearly taken by a trail camera. It was the back of a man walking into the woods near the edge of our land, carrying what looked like the same black device. Only problem was, that man looked a lot like me. My stomach dropped. I had never been there during that time, but someone who looked like me had. One of the agents asked if I had a twin or maybe someone who could have stolen my ID. I didn't. Suddenly, this wasn't just about someone planting something on our land. It was about someone pretending to be me. I stood there staring at the blurry image on the tablet, my head spinning. The man looked almost exactly like me, same build, same jacket I owned, even the same walking posture. But it wasn't me. I told him again, firmly, that peas